We're out here this afternoon, well, this morning, primarily to discuss the case of Imam Jamil. He has been wrongfully incarcerated in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, not in Atlanta, Georgia, but via the Fulton County District Attorney's office for 20 plus years now. We've been able to locate a confession, a video confession of the man who actually committed this crime. We've had signed affidavits for years from the man who has actually committed this crime. And we actually have paperwork from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals condemning the Fulton County District Attorney's office for their gross and egregious violations of my father's constitutional rights during his trial. And so we wanted to take this time to address both candidates in this year's election for Fulton County District Attorney, not to pick a side, but to ask that whichever one of them wins, they do the right thing. As you know, the current environment in America is social justice and doing the right thing as far as social justice is concerned. And the man that is locked behind these walls, Imam Jamil Al-Amin, H. Brown, has done so much to fight for those social justices that for us to be quiet now when he needs us most is unacceptable. And so this is just a cry for justice, to reopen his case, give him an opportunity, a fair opportunity to prove his innocence, and to examine the man who has said for 20 years, signed confessions, paperwork, that he committed this crime. And so again, I'm not here, I'm an attorney, but I'm not here as an attorney. I'm here as a son who's been without his father for 21 years, and I would love to have him back before he passes away behind bars. Another man wrongfully convicted who lost his life for no reason. So, Paul Howard, I ask you to right the wrong that your office has committed, because you've been in this office for 20 years, so you know that you were there when this happened, and you have an opportunity to do something that most people don't have an opportunity to do, and that's to cement your legacy as a man who does what's right in spite of the fact that it was his mistake. Ms. Fannie Willis, we're asking you, if you win, to do the right thing. You came out and said that your father was a defense attorney for the Black Panther Party. My father is an ex-Black Panther and the ex-leader of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and he's inside fighting the same injustices that your father fought for his comrades back in the day. So, whichever one of you win, please do the right thing. Thank you.
Did you go into law and study law because of your father's case? Or?
My mother's actually an attorney. I did not go into law because of my father's case. It was actually a bit of a traumatizing experience watching the justice system not work the way that we're expecting it to work. However, it's been extremely beneficial that I did go into law, and I'm able to kind of liaise between our legal team at Kilpatrick Stockton, or Kilpatrick Townsend now, and my father and the public as well. So it's definitely been a benefit, but it wasn't the motivating factor.
What can you tell us about the confession that you had on
well, the man who confessed, he wrote a confession 20 years ago. He's had information that still to this day has never been released to the press. However, he also fits the description given, 5'9", cold gray eyes, slim. He's bald head now. I don't know if he was bald headed then, but he was also wounded. And both officers who were victims of this crime, one passed away, one survived. That was the description given, and they also said that they wounded the assailant. He has the bullet wound to prove that he was shot. My father was not wounded. There was no DNA evidence that linked my father to this crime, no residue, none of these things. And he's maintained his innocence for these 20 years. So if nothing else, that's why we're not out here saying, hey, let him out right now. If nothing else, let's examine the guy who's saying he did it versus the guy who said he did it.
You're not saying your dad wasn't there, and you're just saying he's not there.
We're just saying he's not the one who committed this crime. That was his community. Everyone, most people who are from Atlanta, Georgia understand the West End community. He was the imam or spiritual leader in that community. So to say he wasn't there would be asinine. That's his community. He was definitely in the area, but he just was not the man who committed this crime. And now that we know who the man is who committed this crime, we want the same justice that everyone else wants. We just would like the injustice to be righted.
We all remember the shots of you in the courtroom in those days. Talk about that and the effect it had on you.
Well, I was 12 years old. It's funny, whenever I run into people who remember that picture, they see me and they're like, oh, this is what you've turned into. So it's a blessing that while it did affect me, it didn't break me. I still have a strong relationship with my mother and my father. And so they were able to keep me headstrong in this fight. But I really didn't take up the reins and to be in the front running of this fight until maybe about 2-3 years ago when my father made that personal request. I guess he felt like I was old enough now to take this on. But one of the things that we say as Muslims is that Allah doesn't give us, or God doesn't give us anything that we can't handle. And so, whatever he puts on us, we take it in stride, and we keep our faith in him, and we keep pushing forward. So yeah, no, it's definitely been an effect because I'm a young man who grew up without his father unnecessarily, but I think I maintained all right. But still, I'm going to fight until the fight is either won or no reason to fight anymore. And that's what you're supposed to do when you're on the side of right.
And how is your father today? What is your communication like?
We speak often. We speak almost every day if he can. But because of the COVID situation, he's currently incarcerated in a federal prison in Tucson. And so occasionally they'll lock the prison down if COVID incidents pop up. And so he might spend 2 weeks where he can't come out, can't use the phone or anything like that. But he's up in age. He has cancer. He has cataracts he can't get surgeries for, and so that's one of the other campaigns we're pushing for. Aside from getting him out, we would like to get him back to Georgia, one, so he can get proper medical attention, and two, so that he can be in contact with his attorneys, and consistent contact with his attorneys, because it's really difficult for him to get adequate legal attention when he's across the country, on the other side of the country.
20 years, 4 months, and 24 days ago, a man confessed to a shooting to his parole officer that took place in an otherwise peaceful neighborhood. He did it verbally and he did it in writing. That man was Otis Jackson, also known as James Santos, and the neighborhood was the West End neighborhood here in Atlanta. Because of his actions, the families of 2 Fulton County Sheriff's deputies were ripped apart. But because of the actions of the Fulton County Sheriff's Department, the Fulton County DA's office, and the FBI, another man was accused, hounded, tried, and convicted, and another family was ripped apart. And in fact, the West End neighborhood and community was devastated, and the peace is no longer present. That man is Imam Jamil Al-Amin, formerly known as H-Rap Brown. And his family and community have suffered under the weight of a life without parole, a life without the possibility of parole, plus 35 years. It was wrong, unjust, cruel, unconstitutional, tinged with racism and Islamophobic hysteria then. And it is wrong, unjust, unconstitutional, remains racist, and tinged with Islamophobia now. The Fulton County District Attorney's Office can right this wrong today. The Imam Jamil Action Network calls on both candidates, the incumbent Paul Howard and the challenger Fani Willis, to now publicly grant or commit to grant upon election a new trial for Imam Jamil Al-Amin to right the wrong done to him, his family, and community. Imam Jamil, former chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, who physically put his life on the line against the most vicious campaigns of racist voter intimidation and voter suppression by Klan and other elements, has endured 20 years of incarceration, including 7 years of solitary confinement. Paul Howard and Fani Willis, if she wins, can right this wrong. As an innocent man, Imam Jamil ought to be released immediately and given restitution for wrongful incarceration. As an elder, he should be released immediately. But a new trial will give him exoneration. We challenge Fani Willis and Paul Howard to do the right thing, to commit now, publicly, to a new trial for Imam Jamil Al-Amin. Thank you.
CAIR-Georgia is the Georgia chapter on the Council on American-Islamic Relations. We're the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and liberties group. We're proud to stand here today, community advocates, the Imam Jamil Action Network, and CAIR-Amin, the son of the incarcerated Imam Jamil Al-Amin, to stand in solidarity to say that this case needs to be reviewed. This opportunity for review comes at the commissioning of the Conviction Integrity Unit that the Fulton County's DA's office has commissioned, and they have the ability to review past convictions, including Imam Jamil Al-Amin. This conviction is a portrayal of the inherent discrimination within our criminal justice system against Black Americans. While overturning or exonerating Imam Jamil Al-Amin now cannot return the 20 years he spent behind bars and the pain and suffering his community and his family has faced, it is never too late to right the arc of justice. This conviction was, Imam Jamil Al-Amin was convicted in the midst of procedural and evidentiary misconduct and also irregularities. Because of this, that we call upon both DA candidates and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office to immediately review this decision and do what's right and right the arc of justice. CAIR-Georgia is here to stand for the Muslim community here in Georgia, the Black community here in Georgia, the Black Muslims, the non-Black Muslims, and those in Georgia that are fight for civil rights and liberties throughout the state, to say that that justice needs to be served, not just for Imam Jamil Al-Amin, his family, his community, and for the victim in the trial, the officer who was shot, by holding the man who has confessed to this crime accountable for his actions. Thank you.
Real quick, so had this been upheld already once, the original conviction, or am I just misreading something?
No, yes, from my understanding, this has been upheld. This has gone through the appeals process. The Supreme Court has recently made the decision not to hear this case. So the way it's being heard now is through this Conviction Integrity Unit and their review.
Do you find that that even with all those levels of already saying that this, is a done deal for him, you still want them to pursue this option because you still feel like it's unjust?
There's still legal options available to Imam Jamil Al-Amin, and this option should absolutely be explored because, like I said before, while it is extremely belated, it's never too late to right the arc of justice.
So do you think this conviction is totally because of who he was and Black Panthers and all that? Do you think that played into it, or what does that say?
We've seen throughout our justice system inherent discrimination against defendants of color. Imam Jamil Al-Amin was a civil rights activist and icon who had been targeted before. So while we can't speak to the hearts and minds of the jurors and the prosecutors, we can point to what was grossly evidentiary and procedural misconduct and irregularities, including the confession of another man for this very crime.
When did that confession come out? I forget.
The first time that I remember hearing about this conviction, Kyrie, you can speak to that as well, was years ago actually, and I think now a video has surfaced.
Conviction or the confession?
Confession.
The confession.
Well, the confession.
You can jump in
Yeah,
there.
jump on in.
No.
Yeah, Kyrie.
Because I heard a question that I definitely
Let's see your mouth.
that I wanted to address. I heard you ask, based on the fact that it's gone through all the levels, why we feel like this is the most, or it's still an opportunity. Well, one of the main reasons we're excited is because one of the things that we're not bound by with the Conviction Integrity Unit are procedural rules. The reasoning behind a lot of our denials in the appeals process is because a lot of the evidence we want to present, we're not allowed to present. For instance, this confession, we knew about Otis Jackson before the initial trial. However, the prosecution told our defense attorneys that one, there was an ankle monitor that proved he couldn't have been there, and two, that he was a little off mentally, and so people wouldn't believe what he said. Now, since then, we had hired a private investigator to check the ankle monitor. The ankle monitor was faulty. And secondly, he's done that. He confessed on the stand in another trial, and before he did that, he had to have a psychological evaluation, and he was deemed not only competent but intelligent, and so they went ahead and used him in that trial as well. So what the Conviction Integrity Unit allows us to do is introduce the evidence that we've been trying and wanting to introduce at all the other levels, because they don't have these procedural issues blocking us from getting justice. In fact, even with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, they told us they regret that they couldn't give us the remedy that was necessary for justice to be taken place, because in the habeas corpus appeal, they had to stick to very specific procedural and evidentiary guidelines as far as what they made their decision on. But for them to go out of their way to let us know in the decision that they regret not being able to do the right thing, and that this office grossly violated not just his constitutional rights, but their duty to uphold justice and not hunt convictions by any means necessary, though that's very strong. And so we have a confession now that we can have, that they're looking at the conviction. We're already in front of the conviction integrity unit, which is why Paul Howard or Fannie Willis will have the ability, because the conviction integrity unit will make a recommendation to one of them, and they will make the final decision as to whether they let him, they release him, they give him a new trial or whatever. But that's why we are excited about where we are now, as opposed to fighting bureaucracy and procedure that we just can't do anything about, because as long as those procedures are in place, we have to follow the law like everybody else. So,
and you have to go through all the way to the Supreme Court denial before you can even start the process you're in now?
Well, not for the conviction. Again, the conviction integrity unit is separate from the legal process. So as soon as Paul Howard introduced the conviction integrity unit at the actual inauguration, Andrew Young spoke, and he turned to the conviction integrity unit and told them that the first case that you should look at is A. Trap Brown, Imam Jamil's case, because if you're looking at conviction integrity, there is none in that one. And so we need to relook at it, reopen it, do whatever's necessary. We're confident in our case if we can get a fair trial, which is why we're not saying just free him. If you want to put us back in court, let's go back in court, and let's do this the right way and make sure all the evidence is there, and make sure that there are no constitutional rights violations by the prosecution, because we were confident the first time that we had done enough without unfairness. So I think I just wanted to expound on that when I heard the question. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. We're really excited about the conviction integrity unit, but we're also going to submit in the Georgia State Court again, because we have new evidence. This video confession we didn't have. We had handwriting and things like that, but he's on video now. So if that can get us back in the door, we're excited. But this is just a recommendation and a sign-off, and we could be where we're trying to be. And so again, Paul Howard, Fannie Willis, please, just do the right thing.
Now, is Jackson still alive?
He is. He's currently incarcerated in Florida.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys. Good luck.
It'll be on our website. Here's where
The following live-streamed program is made possible by Atlanta Video Network, making your streams come true.